Good evening, everyone. Today we are introducing Mr. Sakid Bansal. He is Agile consultant and trainer to give us an insight about Agile approach to project management. Thank you all for attending, and we hope this session will be beneficial for all of you. I would like to remind you to leave all your questions in the Q&A section, and we will go through them and we will answer them as we go. Thank you very much, and let's start.
Thank you. Thank you, Shara, for introduction. And I think some of you might have participated in my previous session where I was talking about disciplined agile. But this time we are talking about little less. We are just talking about agile. And the inspiration of this particular session is also coming from the previous session, because while presenting, we realized, and even I realized, that maybe we need to spend some time talking about agile before we can talk about disciplined agile, because that's already a next step. So that's the background. And I'm Saket Bansal, as Sarah introduced, and I will help you to explore the agile way of doing. I teach project management and agile related stuff as my profession. So we try to keep it as interactive as possible, as we did last time. So you can keep typing your questions, and I have a planned places where we will stop and also look at your questions and talk, even collect some ideas from you by way of sharing some links with you. So that's the plan we have in place. But broadly speaking, I want to touch upon these four things in the session for next 1 hour. Like, why should we worry about a child? That's something we explore. And when someone say, we are using agile, we are using agile based approach, what does it mean? Like, what is agile? How can we understand it? There are various interpretation, and it's not that easy question or an easy answer. I will just share something which probably help you to find out what is agile. And then we look at a quick overview of Scrum, which is like the most popular method of doing agile. And then finally, we talk about agile and triple constraints, because many of you, I'm assuming, might be coming from project management background, and you might worry about, cost, risk, and many other factors, and say, how these things are going to happen in agile world. So we'll talk about probably cost, time, scope, at least these three parameters today, and see how possibly agile way of working may take care of these three parameters as well. So this is the plan which we have for you in today's session. Okay, so I start with a poll. And this is something like I am sharing a link with you, and this link will help you to share some ideas, one or two or three keywords, maybe 2 words thing, which can help us in understanding what is your view related to agile. So primarily we are starting because we want to understand why agile, in your view, why project or some of the projects end up failing. So please share, click on this Menti link, which you might have received in your chat box. It will open up in a browser, and there put your ideas, your perception about why some projects end up failing. So we'll look at them in a while. Please post them there. You should be able to see the link in your chat box. Yeah. And then we can see. Yeah. Is it not coming up? Yeah. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see one word coming in. Yeah, please, yes, just not on the chat box. Link is in the chat box, but you need to type in a presentation space. Yes. So I can see some of you sharing the ideas. And what I am doing is, if you are done with typing your thing, you can see my screen again. And we will this thing will keep updating, and we will keep talking about them. And let's see what we get at the end. Yeah. So as of now, there are some ideas: poor planning, looks like a broad word, but yes, yeah, poor planning can make a project fail. Over budget. Yeah, no big view strategy. uh, okay, so the whatever comes into in the center from this presentation, we can think of that is more commonly discussed point. So whatever is we are seeing in the center, and center is changing again and again. So the planning seems to be one of the reason. But if I dig little deeper into lack of strategy, lack of, so planning seems to be the thing. A scope creep, poor project management, and no feedback, no big view, over budget. All these things makes some of the project fails. So I can say yes. Yeah. Now, if we get little deeper into it, why poor planning? Yeah, there could be multiple reason of poor planning. One reason is that we could not see the problem in detail. That's one possibility. Second possibility is that project management team was not serious about it. But many times, even if project management team is serious about it, still they cannot plan it well because things keeps changing very, very frequently. So it may look like a poor planning, but the whole idea is planning was done with a various assumption. And the poor planning is becoming more and poor now because the assumption which you make few months ago keeps changing very, very frequently. And that's a one of the trigger, you can say, is something which is promoting agile way of working nowadays. So we'll see that. And thank you for participation. And I will use the same link for two more things later on, so please keep the link with you. But yeah, this is something which we wanted to explore. Yes. So I take this thing, so why many project fails. Poor planning seems to be coming as a one idea. And then I go back and I check various surveys, various information which are done by various bodies, and look at why people are going for agile. Now you might be seeing, agile is coming in PMP exam, in PMI exam. Okay, but why? Why one should worry about it? What is making the businesses look at agile way of working? So prominently, you see these four reasons which are coming very, very commonly in various reports. Accelerate delivery. So we want to do a quick deliveries. How can we do a quick delivery? By making the big thing small. That seems to be the one of the reason of going for agile. Ability to change. So the idea here is the planning is becoming more and more difficult to be perfect in today's world. The things are changing very, very frequently. So I hope you can see my slide. Yeah. So the things are changing very, very frequently, and that is why we want to have something which can adapt. Yeah. So organizations are looking, it's very difficult to fix the planning. Yeah. We tried enough. Why? Because our assumptions keeps changing very, very frequently, so we can't fix the planning. Now, can we do something else? Can we develop an ability to change as we go along? So that's another reason many organizations are looking towards agile. And then related one, it reduces the risk because we are validating our assumptions very frequently. Now, risk management always remain the core topic of any project management professional. And you see that you start with a plan and you manage the risk. Now, why do you manage the risk? Because you are always worried the plan may go wrong. There are 100 assumptions you are making in a plan, and these things can go wrong and can derail my thing. So I need to manage my risk continuously. And that go hand in hand. The planning is not effective till the time I have effective risk management. Now, the whole idea here is if I can do a little fast feedback loop, that's the fourth point, I reduces the risk uh, uh, in a way automatically. The process itself reduces the risk because I am going to the people, I am looking at a validation at a very, very frequent basis. So these are the prominent top reasons which are making people look at, okay, can we have some different way of doing things rather than just planning in the beginning and executing it later on? How can we do more and more progressive planning, or you can say rolling wave planning? And that's the reason you can see the trend is moving towards agile way of working. It might be moving more in the technology domain because technology is more dynamic. The whichever field is more change prone, you see the adoption of agile is more prominent there. The fields which are not that much change prone, you may say a little bit limited adaptability is coming, but as world is becoming more and more change prone, you see the more and more agile way of working becoming important for project managers. So this is like a reason for picking up the agile way of working. Now, someone will say, okay, we got it. We understand that, okay, agile is becoming popular, but what it is? How do we understand agile? So I picked up the diagram from PMI's Agile Practice Guide, because many of us are PMI chapter members and PMI members. So I thought, why not I speak a PMI's language to explain the concept here. So the idea here is, what it is saying is a blanket concept or a blanket approach. So agile is something which is including many things. There are Scrum way of working, and this diagram only having 4-5 circles, but there are more than 200 circles now. There are around 200 agile approaches and more are emerging on a daily basis. So there are multiple approaches which are following the idea of agile. That's the one thing. In many way, you can also see this agile is also taking some amount of subset of idea which were already there in a lean way of working. So agile is also taking the principles, the values which were there from centuries, maybe in the lean way of working. They are coming into technology domain, in a product domain, by taking some subset of those practices and making them useful for product development. There is another concept called Kanban, which is also taking a lot of ideas from lean way of working, and many of the Kanban approaches are also part of agile. So for the person who is seeing it first time, the only thing which I want you to look or focus at, gradually you will know all this, that it's a agile is kind of following the foundations which were discussed in the lean before. So it is taking some part of those lean foundation, not necessarily all. And following those foundation, there are multiple variants of it. These variants tell us how to do agile, but they believe in the values, the foundation which agile way of working puts across. And we will touch upon those foundation in this particular session. So yes, agile is an umbrella term which is there for multiple approaches. Now, usually the things which are associated with agile, generically speaking, is complete transparency. So it's like that people should know what is going on rather than only. So, as a project manager, many of us know that the project remains on track at least till 90% of project duration, and it only becomes off track after 90% of the project duration. And that remaining 10% sometimes take the another 90% time, because that becomes so big, it remain off track for a pretty long. Not necessarily true in all the cases, but there is a high probability of such kind of cases. Now, it happens more in a technology domain. Reason being is the progress is not very transparent during the execution. So the agile way of working, which primarily focuses on producing incremental deliverables. So that's the whole idea of doing agile, focuses on like and getting the real status, real feel of the work at a on a real time basis. You can say on a daily level, on a weekly level, we know where do we stand, so that if we are late, we know we are late. And these are the things which are, by way of bringing that transparent system, is something which is associated with agile. The fast feedback and small batch size and inspect and adapt, we can see all these three things in a way related. So the whole idea here is, if you take a big chunk of work and you are waiting for very long, say 1 year, and then you are showing it to customer, the feedback is delayed. Especially in a technology products, what is expected is that if I can, since I don't know exact requirement, that's an assumption. And since I don't know the exact requirement, why don't I take the feedback more frequently so that I can fix if something is not working out? So that's the approach which is followed in agile way of working, where we say, fast feedback, small batch size, and inspect and adapt. So the whole idea is, continuously I need to inspect how I am doing, how my product is doing, and adapt, change the path based on what I learn from it. Then there are some planning approaches and some people management approaches which are usually associated with agile. The planning approach which is usually associated with agile is a rolling wave planning. So since I started looking at PMBOK when it was PMBOK 2000. Yeah, it was then the PMBOK 3 came, and 4 came, and 5, and then finally 6. But before PMBOK 3, it was a PMBOK 2000. That's what I remember. And I can remember since PMBOK 2000, I was aware of this term called rolling wave planning. It might be there before that also, but my experience is only from PMBOK 2000 onward. So it was always there, and this is something aggressively used in agile way of working. So it's always that, progressively. So even in our predictive life cycle, it was there, but maybe done at a limited percentage. Now it is becoming more and more aggressively done. So which means I don't plan the whole project at the same time and in the beginning itself, because I don't want to make all the assumptions what you are going to do on December 2020, 2022, because it's too much. So I want to make a broad guidelines for future, but I want to plan your work for this month so I can really give you realistic planning, and in future I will keep adapting to it. That's the whole idea of rolling wave planning, which is applied in agile way in little more, I think, with the help of some mechanics, which helps us to adapt to the change at a faster pace. So that's a rolling wave planning thing. And now the agile also focuses on a lot on self-organizing team and a leadership which supports self-organizing team. Now somebody may say, what the approach has to do with management style. You can work in an agile way, you can work in a predictable way. Manager is manager, and manager always gives the task. Now, the whole problem or a difference here is manager can give the task provided he is aware of what has to be done all the time. When you have a dynamic work environment, manager maybe get outdated very soon. So the people who are in the ground, they know more about what they are doing. So we need to create a culture where those people take a responsibility of planning and organizing their work, and manager starts supporting them rather than telling them what to do, because telling is something is a bottleneck, because this manager may not be able to keep up with the speed or the dynamics which is happening in the project space. So we want to empower people. That's what is needed in order to be ready to change at very frequent basis, and that's why the servant type of leadership is also promoted in the agile world. So these are the things. And before I take a poll from you, I need to talk about this particular stuff. And I think I will pause after the Agile Manifesto, and then we can have a questions related to what you think about Agile. So the Agile Manifesto is something which is a formal definition of Agile. So you can say that if someone say we are following Agile, so there was a time in 2001, 17, methodologists came and they agreed to some way of working. This is primarily a value. It's a foundation thing. It doesn't tell you how to do the work. Because someone else has to interpret it. So other approaches are interpreting it. It is only telling what is important to do in a change driven environment. And what they said is that there are four elements which needs to be focused when you are working in a very change prone environment. And these elements are individual and interaction over process and tools. So the idea here is, since the world is changing, the work is changing very dynamically, I can't just tell you, give you a document, just read the document, your work will get done, because I don't have a capacity to make that clear document right now, because things are changing very frequently. So it's very difficult to give you a document and tell you the exact process, how you should go forward. So what should I do in absence of it? I promote people talking to each other. I can say, guys, we do have a process, but things can change because we are working in a new world. So why don't you keep talking to each other and find out how should we adapt to it? So that's why they promote it, that in a change-driven environment, it's better to focus on people talking to each other rather than just focusing on process and tools. Then they've also focused on, the manifesto was primarily written for software space. So you see a software language more here, but it was said, that rather than progress is monitored based on some phase completion, like 10% work is complete, 30% work is complete, we should focus on deliverable completion, deliverables which are consumable. So it said that rather than focusing on document based completion, document based progress, document based conversation, we should start doing product deliverable based conversation. So it happened to be using the word working software here, but generically speaking, it is more about something a validatable, independently validatable deliverable, which the stakeholder can also see and feel, that should be used for communication, that should be used for validation, rather than just a documentation and status report. So that's the second point they brought in. And the third point they brought in is that in such a change driven environment, it can only work when you have a collaboration between the vendor and client. You cannot have a very stringent contract and see, in order to make a stringent contract, you need to identify deliverables. And if the deliverables are identified, your work is fixed. You are in a box. So if your contract puts you in a box, how can you be agile? Because your payments are fixed, your payment terms are fixed, your duration is fixed, your cost is fixed. So when everything else is fixed, then better you put the requirement also fixed. Because it doesn't make sense. You say, I will pay you 100,000, but I will tell you what all I need from you. Then I said, no, I don't want to get into such a risky business where you pay me 100,000 and you may take me wherever I want to, wherever I don't want to go. So I don't want to do there. So we need to have such a collaborative contracting and understanding between the two parties. So things are dynamic. So there is an easy way of changing the thing. It could be like, I want to buy your capacity for next 6 months. Give me 100 people for doing this job for next 6 months, like a time and material, many of you understand. And we will evaluate how we are doing every 3 months. Yeah, so tentatively, I am targeting to keep these people for 6 months, and then we will evaluate how things are going after 3 months. If my business case grows, we may commit for 1 year. If my business case shrink, I will tell you that I don't need these guys after 6 months. So that kind of, just a basic example. So that kind of a contract can promote collaboration. And then these two parties are continuously focusing on bringing business benefit, what they have been organized for. So that's the idea of third idea, which was presented in the Agile world. The final one, responding to change over following a plan. So see, since we all started reading project management, I can talk about myself. The change request was always a thing which we need to understand. Oh, this is happening, raise a change request. This is happening, change request. No, which means the project management was always dealing with change. So there is nothing new in managing change. Have been always managing change. Now somebody will say, no, what is new in Agile then? We have been managing change since we started project management, because we cannot assume things will go as planned. There is always a change request. Now, the difference here is, traditionally, we were not anticipating change request. We were planning as if that there will be no change request, and we want to proactively minimize the change request, and by doing more and more detailed planning. The agile way of working is anticipating change request, or you can say anticipating change, or asking that do we need to change before we go forward. So the process is designed in such a way that periodically we take a pause and ask, are we doing right? I'm not sure. Can you check it out? And if you feel that we need to change, then we will change. Rather than stakeholder coming to me, I am going to the stakeholders. Please look at it. I'm not sure if we are going. I means a project team is going to the stakeholder and asking that, guys, please tell us, should we change before we spend one more month on this particular product? So we are always responding to the changing market condition, and by way of welcoming the customer feedbacks, by way of giving them incremental delivery, which gives us a fast feedback, and any approach, say Scrum or anything, or a disciplined Agile, which helps us in managing these four elements, like which facilitates individual talking, which facilitates deliverable-based validation, which facilitate collaboration, and which facilitates dynamic changes, can be an agile approach. So there are some popular approaches which we will just introduce. I will talk about Scrum, but yeah, anything which is happening in that way is the agile approach. So I think we can take a pause here. It's been a half an hour, AI speaking, and let's see if we have some questions for me before I take it forward.
Thank you, Sakit. Dear valuable members, if you have any question, please, it's our pleasure to have it. And Mr. Sakit here to answer them, please. I can see here Zakir Ali is raising his hand. Mr. Zakir, go ahead, please. Okay, it seems that he's away.
So I can read one question. It's there?
Okay.
So there are two questions, and more or less both of them are related. So let me read for everyone, and then probably I try to interpret and speak about them. So the question which I'm reading is, in industrial project, scopes are well defined. How Agile can be used? That's the one question. And then the second question is how we can apply Agile even with the fixed cost project. So I think these are the two elements we can look at. See, if your scope is well defined, then you don't need that many changes. So you won't need the type of agility I was talking about, but you may need some other agility if that add values. You don't have to unnecessarily add value, apply Agile to it. But if you see there is a value, then you do that. Now, what is a possible value which you probably want to explore? You can explore that, can I deliver incrementally? So it's like this, that rather than we are delivering in a one go, even though the scope is well defined, but is it customer get better value by way of getting incremental delivery? If yes, we apply the incremental delivery part of it. And that is where the PMI's hybrid approach comes in, where it says you may do planning in a predictive way, but you may do executing in an incremental way. So I may say that, okay, I have decided the scope in a one go, but when I'm planning the execution, I will do monthly planning. Execution planning is a monthly planning. And why I'm doing it, I'm taking the latest information and I'm delivering things on an incremental basis. So that's a one type of agility which might be useful, which you can see if it makes sense, you apply. If it doesn't make sense, you can say, okay, our current processes are working good for us. As a project manager, what I will say is, I only look at a new approach when I see I have a problem. If I don't have a problem, I don't care about the new approach. But when I say that I have a problem, and then I look at Agile, is my problem probably get solved with this way of working? If yes, then I apply it. It's not necessary that it's in a fashion or a popular thing, so that we also need to do. But I guess there will be something which we can adapt and get some benefit out of it. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's the same part which I try to explain, that you have a fixed work and then things. Now the another thing is so the another possible thing is, okay, so if I say a recent reference for agile approaches for how long-term projects with composition of team and schedule execution. So we will see how possibly the execution done in a Scrum way. And again, the point will come back here. If you have a project and you have all historical data about it, means you know how the cost estimation is done, you know how the execution will done, and you have done that work 100 times before. You don't need agile. But if you are working in a space, so like you are finding a vaccine for COVID-19, it's a large scale project. Yeah. Can you think it can be done without agile? Yeah, it involves everything. Yeah. Now somebody will say, no, why do you apply agile in COVID-19? Because the world is changing every other day. The variants are appearing every other day. The distribution chains are changing every other day. The political map is changing every other day. So we need to have something which can adapt to. And many the companies which are successfully able to bring the vaccine to the market were very much adapting agile way of working. And you can see in their press releases and all how they were doing parallel things and how they were doing these things. Now, once I give that example, you may say, oh, but it's costly. Yeah, it's costly. But what is more costly? Coming up with no vaccine, or coming up with a vaccine? We thought of spending 10 million, but we end up spending 15 million to it. Yeah. So is it okay to spend 15 million and then get a vaccine? Or is it okay to not get a vaccine just by spending $10 million? So even if you spend 10 million, it doesn't matter if you are not getting a vaccine. Yeah, because the world is not going to pay you. Nobody is going to pay you. So, and that's an extreme example. So, and it's a large scale example. You can see how it works. And it also involves a lot of systematic thing. It is not like that vaccine can be changed in between. So there is a good amount of planning and all those things, but there are a lot of execution which happens in the agile way. So that's one, I think, the recent example we can say. And that's now cost matters in a context. So what is a costly here? Because if you don't deliver on time, if you don't that cost of delay is very high. So whenever the cost of delay is high, you want to invest more and more money in the development. Yeah. So that's a one way of looking it. Now, if you say I have a fixed price, yeah. So someone is saying I can only give this much. Can I apply agile? So if you have a fixed price and the person is very clear about the scope and you are also clear about the scope, then you don't need to apply agile because your requirement is clear. You are clear about it as a delivery guy. The customer who is buying something is also very clear about it. Then probably you can do just incremental releases. But when you see maybe money is limited, he says, I just have a 1 million. Yeah, and I cannot go beyond this 1 million, but I don't know what I need. Yeah. So what you can say, can we work together in this 1 million budget and spend 6 months, periodically see how it is working, and let's see if we can make something fruitful. So we can have a clarity that, okay, this will only go for 6 months of iteration, and every month we will evaluate, can we make something out of it or we drop this idea. So there could be a cost constraint. See, money is never unlimited. So there is always a limited money. The only thing is how we are using it and how frequently we are adapting to it. Yeah. So this is, I think I can quote here as an example as well as a thing. But yes, I do understand we need to see in our context, and there is no unique way of applying agile. Agile for vaccine manufacturer, agile for Boeing, agile for e-commerce company like Amazon, or agile for social media company will all have a different meaning. Yeah, so we cannot apply a social media company agile into the aeroplane makers agile or in a vaccine makers agile, but they may pick up some ideas of continuous learning. So what is agile? Continuously learning from the new discovery and changing our path rather than getting blinded by the decision which we made 6 months ago. So many times when you have a good data, the decisions you made 6 months ago will remain true. But if they are going wrong very frequently, then you see them. And more unknowns are there, your decisions will be more risky. And that is where the agile will become more and more useful. I think I see there were similar questions. So I feel that this much of explanation can be the best which I can do here. Yeah.
Thank you, Sakit. And I think that we are having quite a good number of great questions. But there is one question that has really attracted me that is related to the agility itself. It says, does Agile requires whole organization to be aware?
Yeah. So see, my company, and you understand, the companies are also nowadays, the large companies are collection of small companies nowadays. So it depends what kind of a company you are working in. There is a possibility, say my company might also run a business. I am running a bank. Yeah, it needs a proper operational stable system. I am complying with government compliances. I cannot just change my banking system and government will block my license from tomorrow onwards. So I have my own challenges. But at the same time, I have a group of people where I am working on self-service application, mobile application, which helps the people to manage their bank account effectively or manage their banking transactions effectively. So this part of my business can be agile, but other part of my business is too much regulatory oriented and it cannot be agile. So one we can say there is an awareness. There could be a different types of business in the organization itself, and each business will require different flavor or different amount of agility. The businesses which are too much scope driven, which are where they have a regulatory scopes which are pure much time driven, cost driven, that part of the business may not be agile. But the part of the business which are you're discovering new product line, new way of working, new business line is going to be too much agile. So awareness, yes, we should know how our whole organization is working, but it's not necessary the complete organization starts following the agile way of working. Now, is this agile is a corporate decision or a team decision? So in the real world, you see both. So in some and I can say that till few years ago, it was more or less like a team decision. So organization was saying, we just need this. You figure out how do you do it. Ultimately, we want to see a happy customer. We don't care you work an agile way or you want to work in a waterfall way. I just want to get the project done. So that used to be the say 2-3 years ago approach. Now, what is happening is that approach also had a limitation. What limitation is, when I'm implementing in Agile, I go to the business and ask for feedback. They says, oh, you just finish it and then let me know. Or I go to the business and say, I need more money than before. They says, how can we give you money? We have just allocated that much money only. There is no other scope. Now, what is Agile when my money is fixed? Yeah. So I know I cannot go beyond my money. Even if there is a big business case, then agility is limited. So many organizations started seeing that, the team level agility is not producing the overall impact. Then it is becoming a business level agility, at least a part of the business, not necessarily the whole thing. There will be a stable part, there will be a dynamic part, but they are making a corporate level agile decision. And this way of working in today's work is called business agility. We are saying that, let's make the whole business agile rather than just a team agile. So both still exist, but yes, it's moving towards business agility. Yeah.
Great.
Good. So we move, and I think we can now if you can find out more interesting questions. So when we take a next pause, probably we can talk about them. Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it up to you. Once you are ready, please let me know so that I can read them out.
Sure. So let's cover a little bit of more ground, and then definitely we talk around that. Now, so this is from awareness point of view, you may start saying, okay, this guy is telling this is a type of agile, there is a B type of agile. Tell me how many types are there, and which type of agile is more popular. Yeah, that's someone may end up asking. Now, the whole idea here is there are various surveys which keeps happening, and the recent survey which happened 1 year ago, there is a company named version 1, they run a website called State of Agile, and they ask people which agile you are applying. So you see around 58% of the people are using Scrum way of working. So you can say when it comes to agile practices, Scrum way of working is the most common practice which people use. Yeah, so that's just an information which you can keep with you. Now you may say, okay, then what is Scrum? Yeah, can you explain a little bit about it? And that's where the next slide is. What is Scrum? How it works? A quick overview. People may end up going for 2-3 days training on it, but I just want to give you a good starting point so that possibly you can see it. This is the primarily meant for product development, technology product development, which can be built, changed at a little frequent basis. Yeah, there could be a hardware software mix as well, but something technology oriented, which is a product development. Now, how it works? So they tell that based on your vision, based on what you want to do, you come up with a set of requirement. You can say it's a requirement document. People who are planning for PMP, you will keep hearing the product backlog. It's a backlog rather than backing. So what is the product backlog? It's a way of collecting the requirements. Yeah. So you can say this is a product backlog. Now, product backlog help me in keep accumulating the new ideas. So in a PMI language, it's a living artifact. So which means it never get baselined. So if I use your project management language, this is a scope document which never get baselined. Okay, or this is a requirement document which never gets signed off. It will keep emerging. It keeps changing all the time. Now, somebody may wonder, okay, but how do we work on it in such a document? Now, what we do, we can say that, okay, traditionally what we used to do, we have a set of requirement and we tell how much time and money they will take to finish it. Yeah, that's what we do in a project management. In a Scrum way of working, we are doing reverse. We are saying, okay, you might keep dreaming about a lot of ideas, but tell me what you want me to finish in next 2-3 weeks time. So we identify a time box, and time box could be 1 to 4 weeks. We can say, okay, my team is sitting here. This is the capacity we have. And tell me out of your ever growing product backlog, what all elements you want us to finish in this sprint, this time box. You can, for an example sake, we are saying, say, in next 2 weeks time. So they will say, do it all. We can say, no, we can't do it all. Yeah, we can only do this much. Now tell me which one you want. Yeah, we can only do the work, say, just for example, 100 days equivalent work. We can't do beyond that. Now tell me which one you want so that you get a business value. So that forces us to prioritize. So there will be a continuous effort to prioritize these requirements. And we say, okay, we understand you are going to work for a 2 weeks time. I understand I have an ever-growing requirement for as of now. If you can finish these two things, I think we will make good use of our next 2 weeks. Great. So we take those two things. Yeah, the product. So there is a role called product owner. There is a person who is responsible for working with the stakeholders and keeping it managed. And we pick up some ideas which can be done in the next 2 weeks time or a sprint duration time. And then team create a detailed work breakdown structure, detailed plan for this element only. So that's how we do a progressive planning. Yeah, that's how we do a progressive elaboration here. We just pick up some ideas which can be done in the upcoming 2 weeks time. And based on those ideas, we work, we do our daily review. And at the end of a 2 weeks, we produce something which has a potential to even go to the business if the business sees value. And it goes to the business, or even if it doesn't goes to the business, we show it to the world and people may give a feedback on it, and the feedback goes back to the product backlog. So it is like this. I have a lot of ideas. You come to the office and says, boss, you have so many ideas. Just tell me what I have to do today. Yeah, says, okay, for today, you do these two things. You finish those two things and you go, boss, I am done with these two things. Oh, looking at a result looks like I need to change the plan for tomorrow, which I had in my mind. I will tell you what you have to work on tomorrow. So it's like that. Yeah. So you can say that you may always have a lot of ideas. Let me finish something today. And based on what I finished today and your ever growing idea backlog, we will figure out what we work on tomorrow. And this way of working at a very high level, you can say, is a Scrum way of working. Okay. Now I take this little forward, and just to manage your point, and I can understand a lot of project management. I see a lot of question answers on that thing. Some of you have already pasted ideas, and I was watching them when you were doing quick Q&A. So I can say, how do we manage scope, cost, and time in Agile? And I can see some of you have a lot of ideas and things. So this is there. So we are exploring possibly how do we manage scope, cost, and time in the Agile world. So I go and see my ideas and I say, how do we manage scope? So the idea here is the scope is progressively elaborated. It's collaboratively discovered and delivered. So the idea here is there is no someone is giving and someone is doing. The doing team, the project team, and giving team, your stakeholder and the customer, they are one team. So they are collaboratively exploring scope all the time, and it changes very frequently. That's how usually the agile scopes are characterized, and it is getting validated incrementally. So what does it mean? We understand from our project management processes like validate scope, and many of us may end up doing validate scope only towards the ending of the project. In idea of agile way of working, the validation of a scope should be happen on a very periodic basis. So you can say every 2 weeks, when we finish our deliverable, we take it to the customer and we validate it. So validate is an incremental thing, and the scope is continuously prioritized. So again, I understand we are trying to pack a lot of information in a 1 hour, but in a simple word, we can say these are the things which are characteristic of agile way of doing scoping. If some of these characteristics are not present in your case, you may say, looks like my project will not have agile way of scoping. It may have something else, but it will not have agile way of scoping, which is also perfectly fine. If there is no problem, why should we apply something there? So that's a scope thing. Now, when the scope is not fixed, your schedule is not fixed. As I said, the traditional way of working is, I need to get these 10 things, how many months you will take to do it. So we plan for time. This way of working is, I have a 1 month, tell me what all things you want in this month. So we focus on time boxing. So schedule management is done with the help of time boxes. We are saying, okay, if you have 6 months, we will work for 6 months. Oh, what all you will finish in 6 months? We don't know, but we are planning to work for 6 months because that's the money we have for this particular initiative. And we will dynamically keep adjusting the scope as we go along. We will see our results on a monthly basis. We may take 8 months or we may finish in 4 months. It depends. We will take this decision on a monthly basis. Yeah. So there is no critical path made in the advance, because you don't have a critical path, because you don't have a scope, you don't have an activity. So you cannot make a critical path in the beginning or at any time in the project, because it's always evolving. So it's a time boxing, it's a rolling wave planning. And as I said, the leadership is also promoting people to talk. So it's a self-management and the transparency, the way we spoke before, and it focuses on incremental delivery. So time boxing, rolling wave planning, incremental delivery is the characteristic of agile way of time management. So you can say, are we doing time management using agile? Maybe you might not be doing scope management using agile, but if you start if these things add value, I am not saying apply them. If these things add value, incremental delivery, rolling wave planning, and time boxing, then you can use some of these elements of it in your work environment. Yeah. Finally, the interesting question which I saw in the chat all the time: cost, 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 cost. So here it is: cost management in agile. See, agile is not a good approach if you are saying, I have this much and I want all of these things done in this much. It is not a good approach. So when your focus is, I never overshoot my budget, and which means I must get all the scope in this budget, then agile is not a right approach, because you don't know the scope. So how do you know how much it will cost? But it is possible someone can say, my scope is flexible, and as you know, as a triple constraint in the project management world, not everything can be a constraint. So you need to have a flexibility somewhere. So in a agile world, if you say my cost is fixed, then you need to play with your scope. Yeah, or at times little bit, mainly scope. So usually the flexibility in agile world remains on the scope side. In the non-agile world, the flexibility, sometimes scope is non-negotiable. Scope is fixed. You need to focus on time or cost only. Many times the time is the one which remain flexible in the traditional project. Even cost is fixed and scope is fixed. It's all the vendor. He may take 6 months or he may take 7 months, but it's on the vendor now. But in the agile way of working, the cost is estimated progressively. It might be capacity based. So I'm saying I am applying my 20 people for 6 months, and that is the cost I'm going to bear. So that's the whole idea of capacity-based costing. Now, this is an important point which I want to make. The agile way of working focuses on not focusing on sunk cost. So what does it mean? If you have a 10 million project and if you have already spent 5 million, it doesn't matter you have spent 5 million. What it matters is, what are you going to do with the remaining 5 million? So the whole focus of the agile way of decision making is, we have achieved this. Now we need more money. And why do we need more money? Because we have a business case for it. If we have a business case for it, we invest more money. If we don't have a business case for it, we don't invest more money, even if it was approved before. So your project was approved for 10 million. After 5 million, you may decide to stop the project because you don't see the remaining 5 million going in this project adding value. There is the another project where if you can invest 5 million, it can give you better result. So you don't worry about that you have already spent 5 million here, because you want to make best use of your remaining 5 million. So that's the costing and budgeting approach, which is dynamic in nature, is expected to be taken in the agile way of working, which is always seeing, we are standing now, we have already spent something, yes, but as of now, I have a $5 million in my pocket. How can I make maximum out of it? Yeah, I have invested somewhere, but that doesn't matter. What matter is how to make maximum out of it. So that's a kind of an approach which is promoted in agile way of managing cost. And it is primarily evaluated based on returns, which is a related point rather than based on expenses. So that's the I think the point which I wanted to make. So I think these things we kind of explored. So predictive way of working and agile way of working. So predictive way of working is primarily focusing on managing cost, whereas agile way of working is discovering and delivering value. So we don't know what business case we are chasing. How can we make it more profitable? So let's discover and deliver value. That's the whole idea of agile way of working. It is more about fixing the requirement, the predictive way of working. Here, the requirements are dynamic. If you see yourself more and more here, maybe you continue working in a predictive way till the time you don't see a need of going into that direction. Predictive way of working many times focuses on single or few deliveries, 1 or 2 deliveries, whereas agile way of working is a frequent small deliveries. So this is like at a summary level, I can say, just to relate that, how these things contradict with each other. And this is nothing like right and wrong. There is a context. When I can do this, why to get here? Yeah. When I cannot do this, I cannot have fixed requirement. I cannot manage the cost because I don't have a scope clarity, then I do this. Yeah. So that's the point which I want to close with and show something about the future reading. So I know this was a small presentation. There is a Agile Manifesto. There is a website which tells you about the 4 values and 12 principles. There is a PMI's flavor of Agile called Disciplined Agile. You may want to check it. I see many webinars happen on Disciplined Agile at this platform. The Scrum is explained with the help of Scrum guide. So there is an official guide. It's a small PDF file. You can download and read about it. That's a Scrum way of working. And there is a little comprehensive framework at an organization level, Agile adoption, which is called Scaled Agile Framework. So this might be a little difficult to start directly, but you may progressively reach there. And that could be the another interesting thing which you may want to check out. And then I go for final Q&As. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sakit. Really, it was very informative and insightful. This is just remind me when you mentioned about the scope management, knowing that the agile approach is always welcoming the change. However, how can we avoid the scope creep?
Sure. So, see, I teach PMP as well. And so I get this question many times. We don't like scope creep. We don't like gold plating and how it is happening in the agile world. So the way we can understand scope creep is changing the scope without following the proper change control process. Yeah, that's a scope creep. But if you follow a change control process, then it's not a scope creep. Yeah, it's a change which is needed. So in the agile world also, you have a change control process, but that process is very flexible. That process is very dynamic. So rather than having two levels of approval, you may have a one person who approving it like this. So in the agile world also, we have an agreement with the stakeholders that guys, whoever can request, but we are not going to follow anybody's request. Whenever the request will come, this is the guy who need to do a due diligence, think of ROI of that request and say, go ahead, then only we will go ahead. In a Scrum word, it is called product owner. So you can say Agile also has its change management board kind of thing, but board might just have a one guy. Yeah. And this person has other understanding with the stakeholders, and he know what kind of a decision he can make alone and what kind of a decision he need to take in consultation with other people. So we manage the scope creep by having a change control board, which is a lightweight change control board rather than a heavyweight change control board. Yeah.
Lovely answer. Thank you very much. We have a question here from Sultan saying, would appreciate briefly mentioning benefits of rolling wave planning? I think you have touched base on this one.
Sure.
However, if
So,
you have something additional to say in this regard.
Yeah. So the essence, and this could be there in the predictive life cycle also. As a project manager, I can talk about myself. When I used to make project management plan schedules for my project teams, I used to make 10 months in advance and telling, on this particular date, you developer will do this work. Yeah. And I don't know what will happen in 10 months, but I'm making that schedule today because my process tells me you need to baseline this schedule. I need to see what this guy is doing for next 1 year so I can do a resource planning. But actually, even I don't know, and nobody knows what is going to happen. But for a documentation purpose, we end up thinking, visualizing, and we end up doing it. And after that, we keep changing all the time, which adds work to us. Now, how do we change that? We can say, okay, I don't know what you will do after 10 months, but I know what you are going to do this month. Yeah, so let me explain what you are going to do this month. But for remaining months, I can just block your capacity. I can say, you are going to keep working on my project 8 hours a day. So I block your capacity, but I don't detail those tasks as of now. I will detail those activities as we reach there. So I can say that any point in time, my people will know what they have to work on at least for next 30 days. But beyond 30 days, it will be rolling wave. So they will have some capacity blocked. So 30 days, I'm just using as an example. It could be a 3 months in some cases. It could be a 2 weeks in some cases. We are saying progressively, you will know exactly what you are doing and what we have to do. And if I do that way of planning, I can take all latest information in place and I don't have to keep doing rework of my old plan and keep adjusting. Many times, project managers put that project schedule aside that only remains for compliance purposes, and they maintain their own running Excel sheet to tell people what they should do on a daily basis, because that schedule becomes very difficult to manage. So that's why the rolling wave planning was there. It was there in the traditional project management as well. It's there in Agile. In Agile, what you can say, every sprint, the way we spoke about time box, we plan for detail. And once the sprint gets over, we have another 2 weeks which are planned for detail. But beyond 2 weeks, the plan is little vague. They are at a top level, and individuals are not assigned to the activities. They only get assigned to the activities on a, say, 2-week cycle. So that's how we can roughly understand how it works and how it benefits.
Thank you very much, Sakit. I think we are 3 minutes to the end of our webinar, the workshop. However, I'd like from you, Sakit, to stay with us for 10 to 15 minutes more so
Sure,
that
sure,
we
sure, sure.
can answer the questions. I can see so many interesting questions. We'll try to answer them as much as we can. The next question is from Muhammad Raufuddin. He's saying, what's the most common agile approach in Saudi Arabia? He's talking about construction projects.
Frankly speaking, I don't know. You guys will knowing more than me. Yeah, Saudi Arabia at least. Yeah.
Agree.
But I can
How-
guess. I can guess.
Yes.
I can guess that looking at PMI's penetration in that market, maybe the organizations might be more open to apply the PMI's flavor of agile, which is a disciplined agile. I am guessing, and that's my pure guess. And I think the disciplined agile already had some traction in Saudi Arabia before. So that could be because it matches with the existing PMOs and existing connections. So that could be the one which might win over a period of time. Yeah.
Okay. With regard to this question, do you think that so far the agile methodologies are mostly fit with the information-based projects rather than the infrastructure and the construction projects?
Yes, I agree to it. And one of the reason I can see is because the predictability of the infrastructure and construction project is decently good. They are not facing that much unpredictable environment. But as the technology will start influencing their work and their environment will also changing. For example, I'm making a building and I started the project development. And in a 1 month time, some new technology came, which can make the development of that particular building 10 times faster. But since I have made my plan before, a one vendor or a one construction company will go with their plan because they don't want to look at the new technology. But someone who is open to it, he says, okay, yes, we thought of procuring all these things. We have some contract and some contracts are still not there. But why not we scrap that and take this new technology and make it faster? So if that kind of thing starts happening more frequently, we will say that's agile. Yeah, because the project was for 2 years, but during that initial planning, the construction company was not aware of that technology, that way of doing work, or that was not even mature. But now that way of building has become mature, and then they want to take it. In other industries, these things are happening at a very frequent basis. And that's why they need to keep changing. Say, I start doing development and I take some code thing. I take a particular version of Facebook and I start building. By the time I finish project, 2 months, the Facebook version is changed. Yeah. Now I can't say, oh, I took it 2 months ago. I will work on that only. They says, okay, but who will use your product? Because the Facebook has changed, the telco has changed, and everything has changed. Now, if you don't change, you go to a dustbin. So nobody will use it. So that was more and more happening in a technology world. I am not sure how much it is started happening in construction world or in the other industrial world. The more such kind of a dynamics will come, the more need for agility will come.
Great, thank you. Another question from Tausif Khan. He's saying how to select appropriate methodology for agile-based projects. You can answer in half a minute or so that we can catch up with the other questions, please.
Yeah, it's a difficult guess. It could be a multiple factors like what is your team familiarity, how geographically they are distributed, and what kind of a team composition. Is it a vendor team or customer team? So there are multiple factors which needs to be seen, and how frequently the feedback has to be taken. So it's a little complicated question, but these are the parameters which might help you to find that out. Yeah.
Great. The next question was from Lohid Nadig. I think it is almost the same previous question. He says how to do selection of approach for projects. And I think this is what we have just now talked about. The next question is from a very old friend, Hammam Shekfe, one of the, I would say that the cornerstones of the PMI field in Saudi Arabia. Hammam says, can you apply agile approach on already started projects or only for new projects about to start?
It can apply on the already started projects. When we get into crisis, it already comes in. So I have seen many times we plan predictive. After halfway through, we realize nothing is moving. And we says, okay, let's put the plan aside, take the stock now and do more collaboratively. Then we may have not used the word agile, but we applied agile after seeing the crisis. So usually crisis makes us apply agile when we start the project. Yeah.
Thank you. Next one is from Khadar Muhammad saying, is agile framework more suited to certain industries more than others?
I think we touched upon that when I was telling, when your technology is changing, when your competition is bringing new ideas, so you don't want to be left behind, you have to apply. So if that is happening more frequently, and if that construction company is taking new technology and they are bidding less now, and we keep using our old technology, we will get into problem, then I need to change fast. So competition, innovation in the industry drives agility. Wherever you see these things are more competitive, you have more agility there.
Thank you. Another question from Mr. Vid Baral. He's saying how we can handle suppliers in Agile when the client changes his requirement during execution in construction works.
So this is something like we need to plan for it. So you need to add some clauses there. There could be a cost of change. Yeah. So we need to be clear with that. And we need to see, is it good to pay that cost of change or continue with the same approach? So we do a cost benefit analysis. The more probability we'll see it, the more clauses we will start adding to in our contracts, which will allow us to do it.
Thank you. The next question is from Migran Al-Hajri. He's saying, kindly, can you please explain what is the difference between Agile cost and the Waterfall cost?
I think both are dollar. The only thing is ultimately cost is money. The only thing is the Agile cost is we are chasing the target. So if I give an example of vaccine will cost us money, but the goal is development of the vaccine. And we don't know how it will work, so it will be more flexible. When we have a predictable target, we know this is where we have to shoot, then the cost will be more predictable. You can say the variance will be less. So variance into a predictive life cycle will be less when it comes to cost. Variance in the adaptive life cycle will be high when it comes to cost. But the focus in the adaptive life cycle is not the variance. It is about achieving the goal. So how much money we spend to get the vaccine is not the focus. Did we get the vaccine is the focus.
Okay. Here's another point by Said Hassan. I think it's not a question. However, he's saying if we manage scope for cost will automatically be controlled as per.
Perfect.
Yeah. So any reflection on this?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect. If you, as we said, that we have this our triple constraint, and if we keep the scope flexible in case the cost is need to be controlled, then you can play with the scope. You can say, okay, this is what we have to continuously prioritize, and we only give the high priority items and don't give the low priority items.
Okay. Yeah. Another question from Nabil Qureshi saying, what about change request in Agile approach? No change request.
So you can say, see, as a PMP, we will say there is a change request, but the process of change request is very fluid. So you can say that there is a change control board, but one person is taking that call, maybe with the consultation of other people without much. So you can say every week we have a change meeting, or every 2 weeks we have a change meeting where we will approve and reject a lot of ideas. So that is a kind of a change management you are doing. Ideas are definitely coming. It is not free flow, else it will go uncontrolled. And there is a discussion which is happening. And you can say the sprint planning meeting, the backlog prioritizations are those events. So they are more regularly designed meeting rather than once the change request will come, then only we'll do the meeting. They are always happening.
Okay. Majda Shamardal asking about the sunk cost. Does it mean the remaining balance?
No, the sunk cost means what is already went out of pocket. So it's like that you have already spent some money. Sometime we want to finish the project because we have already spent the money. That's a sunk cost thinking. You are thinking, oh, since I have already spent 5 million, why don't I finish this project? When I don't think about sunk cost, but what I'm thinking is what money I left in my pocket. I say, I have a $5 million left, and what is an opportunity cost? So the opposite of sunk cost is an opportunity cost. How can I make best use of this $5 million? And I make my decision based on that rather than I have already spent $5 million in project A. I'm saying, how should I make the remaining use of remaining $5 million? That's the opportunity cost based thing.
Great.
I have a question, if you permit, Nawaf.
Please go ahead.
Actually, Saket, as I understand that we don't plan to choose an agile or predictive approach, but it is imposed by the lack of resource, the unclearance of scope. So
Got
we
you.
can, yes.
So that's the question I will relate to the previous one. You start in a predictive world, you get into chaos, and then you get forced into agile world. So it happens. But proactively also you can see your situation and says, let's not go into a predictive world because situation is not aligned to it. So a good project management, as a project management plan, one of the thing I need to do as my PMP is select my appropriate life cycle based on my project environment. And many times, if I end up doing mistake there, after few months, I may realize this is not working out. I change my life cycle. It is not something permanent. So I may start with predictive, I may change to adaptive. And once the product is ready and I want to do a rollout to the whole country, I may go back to the predictive. It says, okay, we have developed it, but the rollout and training should happen in a predictive mode. So these all things can happen in an iterative way.
Another question, if you permit. Now, time is money. How, in the same time, be time boxing and be flexible in budget estimation?
Yeah. So the whole idea here is it's a prioritization. So if you want to say that I have a limited money, then I only do the high priority item. And sometimes I say that, I have a minimum goals to achieve, but the minimum goal has not been achieved in this much time, then I extend some time. I take an example. Someone wants to do PMP. Why they want to do it? Because they want to grow in their career. I want to earn, say, 100% more money than what I'm earning today. And that is my goal. I did PMP. Yeah, but still I'm not getting 100% more money. Then what will I do? I may add another certificate and education program. I says, looks like I need to do PMI PBA also. Then I will only get the 100% money. So I do both. So, but somebody will say, why don't you think in advance and why don't you do PMI PBA before? I was not aware. I did a mistake. But what do I do once I have done the mistake? So it is not one rule. It's like we continuously see that, yeah, if I have a limited money, I choose PMP versus PMI PBA and says I can only do one. I don't do much. But when I say, no, whatever happens, but I need to earn 200% of my salary in the next 1 year time, I keep changing and keep running more iterations till the time I reach to the goal of 200% salary.
Yes, great. It is role weaving planning every time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sakt. Thank you very much. So
Okay.
please, Nawaf.
Okay, another question by Zakir Ali. He's saying how an agile way of work control without knowing critical path activities to manage the delivery of program or project.
So I bring the hazards example again, and you can say, I want to earn 200% of my salary. Yeah. What is a critical path? And how do you control that? Now, you may have an idea. I will do PMP and I will get it. But by the time you do PMP, you realize it's hardly 20% increment, 80% still missing. Yeah? So you don't know. You can plan in a critical path when you have an idea. You know what are the steps. But when you are going in an unknown territory, you don't know the step. Now, what is the option? I says, okay, for this quarter, I have a goal to do it in a 1 year. I may take 1.5 years also, but this is a goal of a 1 year. And in this quarter, I want to focus on project management and be very active in PMI chapter and do PMP. And let's see what I get after 3 months. Yeah, after 3 months, you realize that, okay, I have not achieved what I wanted to achieve, but I know what I was doing wrong. You replan your work. So you don't have a ready-made critical path. Critical path is emerging as a history when you are walking the path. So as you are walking, the path is getting laid out in front of you. The critical path is we lay out the path first and then we walk on it. In agile way, we walk and path comes as a history, not as a future progress.
Okay, good. Sayed Hassan says, thanks for the slides, for agile approach and good engagement with audience. Thank you very much, Sayed, for your feedback. He's saying that please share the presentation by email. Inshallah, we will send it to all the audience, bi'idhnillah. Next question is by Ahmed Mursi. He says, how could agile approach be perfectly implemented on Manpower contract for operating IT services?
So again, we need to see the element of it. What kind of a variability? So you say Manpower contract, you may have a variability of people. So rather than planning all the people for the full duration, you may say, I'm not committing for 100 people for 1 year. I'm only committing progressively, and there will be few things I will review after every 3 months. So that's a one small way of agility there, because after 3 months, you may realize that technology has improved. Now you don't need 100 people. So as a contract giver. So I am saying, artificial intelligence is coming and all those things are coming. So in a simple word, small duration contract and small feedback loops. So what is agile? Taking feedbacks progressively and not making very long-term commitments where things are uncertain. We are saying, okay, we will decide after 3 months. So that's as a philosophy I can tell, and not necessarily the exact mean. Yeah.
Okay, another question says from Hassan Al-Marhoon. He's saying that how can we apply Agile in big projects?
Yeah. So as I said, the context will little drive. So big project will have little bit more predictive planning. So you can say it will not have everything adaptive. So big projects will have little bit of hybrid. You will have some visibility, and say project is also a collection of multiple components. Say I'm making a car. Yeah. So I work with many automobile where they make a car, new car, and they apply agile into it. Now, what is car? Car has a platform which is stable, which takes time to develop. Car also has a multimedia, which is which can change till the last day. Car also has a dashboard, which can also change till the last month. So when I'm designing a new car, my multimedia component, my dashboard component is dynamic till the day end. But my platform, which will support the whole car working, is predictive. You can't touch it, else we will in a mess. So the large project will have a combination of these things. You won't have 100% agile. You won't have 100% predictably. You will have some elements which will form a backbone of that project, and you will have many elements which needs to be agile in order to beat the competitor, because your dashboard, the way it looks, if then another car comes in, by the time you launch it, you may not be in a competitive position to sell your car.
Great. Mr. Abdurrahman Muhammad saying, what is the difference between Agile and disciplined Agile, since both are from PMI?
So agile is little broad term. It is not from PMI. PMI ACP, they have a certificate for it. The disciplined agile is a PMI product now. They acquired it. So you can say disciplined agile has their approach to agile. And it is meant for large organization. It is meant for different type of organization using different element of it. So I say the disciplined agile help us to make pick and choose agile. So they have their own flavor, which helps us to create a pick and choose based option, which might work in a multiple context.
Okay, Nuruddin Mahdar saying, if we know the critical path, but we don't know contractor performance, how can we make benefits from the Agile practice?
Okay, so you have a critical path, but you have an uncertainty about the time. Yeah. So you can say the scope is fixed, but the performance is not fixed. So you can say that the planning is done in a predictive way, but execution is done in an adaptive way. Mm-hmm. So you are saying that every iteration we are planning, every iteration we have a new contract, and we are continuously reviewing our deliverable. So you can say the deliverable scope validation happens very frequently. So if I just give a PMI type of answer, so you plan the scope predictively, but you do validate scope on a very frequent basis. So that could be one way of using Agile in that context. Yeah.
Great. Last but not least question from Hussein Hassan. He's saying, please give us examples for projects that we can apply the Agile approach. I think I've touched base on some of them, but there is
car. The car is there. Yeah, car is I think a good example here. And new cars, new model of a car, not a production of a car. When you are developing a new model of a car, you apply. So there will be always an opportunity to apply some amount of agility. Any new product development where you don't have everything crystal clear will have some component, say even product marketing, say even if you are running a construction project, but the construction project also has a marketing associated with it, assuming you are responsible for launching the whole township, not only building it. So your marketing part could be very agile. You may see a different construction projects coming in during the same time. You need to pitch the different customer segment. You need to show the different value proposition. So how do you position your marketing message, even for a construction project, might be very, very agile. You can't just make a plan in the beginning and say, this is what we will do.
So we'd like really to thank you for your time and for the great presentation and the workshop that you have just delivered. Also, we'd like to thank the great audience, our valuable members, for being here. I think all of us agree that your questions and your contribution being here in the workshop really has raised the bar. Thank you very much all for this. Before we call it a day, this is just a reminder to follow us on our social portals and visit our website so that our great members will get involved and informed about our activities. You can just touch base on or just contact us on the our Twitter account, for example, or that is BMI KSA chapter, or via the LinkedIn BMI-KSA-chapter, or you write to us in our emails, that is info@bmiksa.sa, or you have any concern related to the membership, you can write to us on membership@bmiksa.sa. Thank you very much all once again for this session. For your information also, we are going to send you the feedback survey. Please take some times from your valuable time and do write to us. We always like to hear from you, because whatever you have as an ideas, feedback, this is really help us to improve our services. And for your information also, we are going to conduct a raffle draw on the BMI Saudi chapter membership. If you are a BMI, if you are an active BMI membership, we will do the raffle draw, and we will be pleased to offer you a free membership for 1 year for the Saudi chapter. With this, our event come into an end. Once again, we thank you very much for your kind attendance and active engagement for the past 1 hour or so. I think we have covered almost all the questions that we have received in the QA. Thank you all once again. Good night. See you inshallah in our next webinar. Good night.